Hello everyone, welcome to HFY Beyond Terror. This channel is all about HFY and sci-fi stories, where humanity's underestimated and then proves.
The assignment board flickered to life in the Academy's main hall, and the usual chatter died on the spot. Cadets from 20 species pressed in around the holographic display compound eyes. Slit pupils, faceted lenses, and pupils that dilated in colors Ryan Cole didn't have words for. The mission header hung in the air like a curse. VORT-7. Veterans went quiet. Even the ones who pretended not to be veterans. Ryan shouldered through elbows and antennae, squinting at the scrolling brief. Solo retrieval. Abandoned research station. Classified data cores. No scheduled extraction. His lips pulled into a grin before his brain could catch up. He raised his hand. "I'll take it." The silence deepened until it felt physical. A Taurian cadet, 4 arms, 2 sets of blinking lids, turned slowly to stare at him. "You understand what Vort-7 is?" Ryan shrugged. "A planet." "A grave," someone muttered. The Taurian's lower hands gestured sharply at the mission history. 12 missions sent. 0 returned. The planet kills everything. "Sounds like a challenge," Ryan said. "Besides, I grew up on a colony. Survival training was basically our school sport. This is just camping with extra steps." Nobody laughed. They didn't even look offended. They simply drifted back from him as if stupidity might be contagious. Commander Hayes called him in an hour later. The commander's office smelled faintly of antiseptic and old coffee. Hayes sat behind his desk with a stiffness that suggested exhaustion had become a permanent joint. He looked older than 50, like time had taken out loans and never repaid them. "Cole," he said, and tapped a file open on his screen. "Sit down." Ryan sat. Hayes swiped through images, projecting them in the air between them. Purple forests beautiful at first glance, until the camera angle shifted and Ryan noticed bones scattered like pale driftwood under the trees. Rivers that steamed, the surface rippling with chemical sheen. Storm clouds that cracked with green lightning. "Atmosphere will burn your lungs," Hayes said. "Water is acidic enough to dissolve most species. Local fauna hunts in packs and can tear through military-grade armor. The last team lasted 4 hours before we lost their signal." He stopped the projection on an image of a helmet, split open like an egg. Then Hayes looked directly at him. "The only reason this mission exists is because regulations say someone has to attempt recovery. Command expects whoever goes to die. They've already drafted the casualty report." Ryan leaned forward, eyes scanning the overlays. "What kind of fauna are we talking about? Predators or scavengers?" Hayes blinked, like his brain had to reboot. "That's your question?" "Predators are territorial," Ryan said matter-of-factly. "Scavengers are opportunists. Different problems. Also, how acidic is the water, really?" "Compared to what?" "Compared to what?" Hayes echoed, incredulous. He pulled up a chemical analysis. "It dissolves Zacharian chitin in under a minute." Ryan nodded. "Zacharians have calcium-based exoskeletons, right? Acid eats that. Human skin's tougher than people think." Hayes stared. Ryan scrolled the data himself, frowning thoughtfully. "This looks like swimming in a chlorinated pool that hasn't been balanced properly. Uncomfortable, rashy, maybe burns and cuts. Not ideal. Not instantly fatal." "You're serious," Hayes said softly. "Sir," Ryan said, meeting his gaze, "I'm bottom of my class in tactical theory and quantum mechanics. But survival training? That's my lane. My colony had bears, wolves, weather that could kill you 6 different ways. I know how to live in places that don't want me there." Hayes held his stare for a long moment. "And honestly," Ryan added, voice quiet but steady, "if nobody expects me to come back, what do I have to lose?" The commander exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for years. Finally, he nodded once. Approved. 2 days later, Ryan stood in the equipment bay packing his gear. The standard issue survival kit sat untouched on the bench like a joke somebody had told too often. Instead, Ryan filled his pack with things that made the quartermaster's antennae twitch with suspicion. Fishing line and hooks. A compact segmented rod. Water purification tablets rated for Earth's worst swamps. A fire starting kit with waterproof matches. Protein bars that could survive a nuclear blast. A solar charger. And wrapped carefully at the very bottom, his father's old camping knife. Cadet Cole, the quartermaster clicked, voice sharp. Those items are not regulation for hostile environment deployment. Regulation gear assumes I'm fighting the planet, Ryan said without looking up. I'm planning to live on it. Big difference. He added a small cookpot to the pile. Then paused. You got any seasoning? The quartermaster stared like Ryan had requested a live grenade. Salt, Ryan clarified. Maybe dried herbs. The quartermaster walked away muttering in a language Ryan didn't know, but the tone translated easily. Other cadets came to say goodbye. Most looked at him like they were attending a funeral. A few were genuinely sad. One Vraxian clasped his shoulder with a manipulator tentacle. You are braver than I understood, human. May your ancestors welcome you swiftly. Thanks, Ryan said. I think. He hefted his pack. See you guys in a few weeks. Nobody corrected him, but their faces did. In the doorway, Commander Hayes appeared. Cole, a word. They stepped into the corridor. Hayes pressed a small data chip into his palm. Personal emergency beacon, Hayes said. Not regulation. If you use it, I'll deny I gave it to you. But if things go completely wrong, hit it. I'll figure out a way to get you out. Ryan pocketed it. Appreciate it, sir. But I'll be fine. Hayes gave him a look halfway between anger and despair. How can you be so confident? Ryan smiled. Because everyone keeps telling me this planet will kill me. But the briefings also say it has breathable air, drinkable water if you filter it, and lots of wildlife. He shrugged. That's not a death world, sir. That's just Earth before we paved it. Hayes didn't smile back. Ryan's grin softened. My grandpa used to say, the difference between an adventure and a disaster is your attitude. I'm choosing adventure. The transport pod was cramped and automated. The jump to Vort 7 took 6 hours. Ryan spent it reading the ecosystem notes, making his own annotations, and chewing through a protein bar while the pod hummed around him like a bored machine. When the pod hit atmosphere, alarms began to scream. Radiation warnings. Atmospheric toxicity alerts. Predator signatures detected. Temperature fluctuations. The computer's calm voice listed 17 different ways he was about to die. Ryan turned the audio warnings off and watched the planet grow larger. From orbit, the purple forests looked dense, like spilled ink across continents. Rivers cut bright lines through the canopy. Mountain ranges cast long shadows that promised caves. Good shelter, he thought. Good water access. Decent terrain. The retro thrusters fired hard. Branches scraped the hull as the pod punched through the canopy. Impact came hard enough to rattle his teeth. The pod bounced twice, then settled with a groan of stressed metal. Silence followed, broken only by cooling engine ticks and the steady drip of something on the hull. Ryan checked his gear, pulled on his pack, grabbed his rifle, and hit the door release. The hatch hissed open. Warm, humid air rushed in, smelling like rotting vegetation and musk. He stepped onto purple moss that squelched under his boots. The trees were massive skyscraper trunks reaching into permanent twilight. Somewhere distant, something howled, the sound rolling through the canopy like thunder that had learned a voice. Ryan inhaled. His lungs burned slightly like jogging at high altitude, but the air didn't claw him from the inside the way the briefings had implied. He smiled to himself. Then he pulled out his compass, oriented toward the research station coordinates, and started walking. 3 kilometers away, Commander Hayes sat at his desk and updated the mission file. Status: expected casualty. Await confirmation. Ryan's first night on Vort 7 taught him the briefings had understated some things and exaggerated others. The toxic spores? They made him sneeze twice and gave him watery eyes for an hour. Like walking through ragweed back home. The acidic water? It stung when he washed his face like salt in a cut. Annoying, not melting. The predators, though, those were real. He found a clearing about a kilometer from the crash site and set up camp properly. Fire pit dug and ringed with stones. Gear hung from branches to keep it out of the damp. Shelter built against a massive tree trunk using the pod's emergency tarp and local limbs. His father had taught him, comfortable camping was safe camping. Comfort meant your brain stayed online. The fire crackled. Ryan warmed a protein bar over the flames, an old trick that made terrible rations almost edible. He boiled stream water, filtered it twice, let it cool in his canteen. The first sip tasted metallic and sharp, but his stomach accepted it. That's when he heard the breathing. Not his own. Something big, just beyond the firelight. Ryan didn't freeze. Prey froze. Predators noticed. He rose slowly and reached for his rifle without jerking. He kept the barrel angled down but ready. "I can hear you," he said evenly. "This is my camp. I'm not looking for trouble." The breathing stopped. Branches cracked. Something massive pushed through the undergrowth. It looked like someone had taken a grizzly bear, dipped it in midnight blue fur, bolted on an extra pair of smaller front limbs, and replaced its teeth with something meant for sharks. 800 pounds of muscle and hunger. Its eyes caught the firelight and threw it back in eerie green. Ryan's heartbeat stayed steady mostly out of stubbornness. "Hey there," he murmured. "You're beautiful." The creature growled, a sound that vibrated in his ribs. It took another step, testing him. Ryan eased one hand into his pack. Fingers found what he wanted. Half a protein bar. He tossed it gently so it landed halfway between them. The predator's head snapped down. It sniffed. Looked back at Ryan as if the universe had developed a typo. "Yeah," Ryan said, voice calm. "I know. Prey doesn't offer food. But I'm not prey." He sat back down slowly, making himself smaller, less threatening. "That's yours if you want it." No strings attached. The creature moved forward with startling quiet. One bite and the bar vanished. It sat back on its haunches, watching him. Ryan poked the fire with a stick, movement slow and predictable. "Loaded with calories," he said conversationally. "We make those for long deployments." The predator circled the camp once, staying just outside the firelight. Then it settled down 20 feet away, still watching, but no longer advancing. Ryan exhaled. Not relief. Not quite. More like, all right. Negotiations begun. He banked the fire for the night. "I'm calling you Bruno," he said into the dark. "You remind me of a bear from Earth Stories." Bruno's eyes glowed, unblinking. Morning came with strange bird calls and damp earth smell. Bruno was still there. Ryan went about his routine like it was the most normal thing in the galaxy. Heat water. Check gear. Eat breakfast. Every so often, toss a small piece of food toward Bruno without making a show of it. By the third day, Bruno followed him openly. 30 feet back. Sometimes less. Close enough that Ryan could feel the animal's attention like gravity. On the fifth day, Ryan set up his equipment. The research station was still a day's travel away, but he wanted to send proof of life before command fully filed him under regrets. He positioned the camera on a rock. Bruno lay beside the fire, grooming his fur with a tongue the size of Ryan's forearm. Ryan hit record. "Hey, Command. Ryan Cole here." He looked into the lens like he was talking to a friend, not a bureaucracy. "Haven't made it to the station yet. Terrain's rough, so I'm taking it slow." He gestured to Bruno. "And I wanted to show you the local wildlife. This is Bruno. Database calls him an Ursanthrax apex predator. About 800 pounds. Bruno yawned, revealing teeth that could rearrange steel into modern art. "He's actually pretty friendly once you establish you're not food and you're willing to share. I've been documenting behavior and ecosystem stuff. Xenobiology's gonna love it." Ryan smiled. "Anyway, planet's challenging but manageable. Talk soon." He sent the transmission. Then he laughed because Bruno rolled onto his back, legs in the air, looking less like a nightmare and more like a very large, very judgmental puppy. Junior Communications Officer Thal nearly dropped his drink when the Vort 7 transmission arrived. His secondary arms fumbled with the console while his primary hands pulled up the feed. A human sat by a crackling fire. Beside him lounged a fully grown Ursanthrax. The predator groomed itself while the human spoke casually, like this was a camping vlog and not a classified death mission. Thal made a noise that wasn't a word. "Commander Hayes," he croaked into his cum. "You need to see this now." Within minutes, half the cum department crowded around the screen. They watched in silence as Ryan demonstrated how to identify edible fish and at one point reached over to scratch behind Bruno's ear. "He's alive," someone whispered. "That's an Ursanthrax," another officer said, horrified. "They're documented as hyper-aggressive territorial killers. He's petting it." Hayes arrived, watched the video twice, then opened Ryan's file and stared at the casualty report he'd signed 5 days ago. His jaw tightened. "Get me a direct line," he ordered. "And copy this to Xenobiology." Someone did. Someone else later, somewhere else did what people always did with something impossible. They shared it. Within 48 hours, Ryan and Bruno were known across 3 solar systems. By the end of the week, the entire galactic network was watching a human death worlder fish in purple rivers while a monster bear supervised. Ambassador Krell watched the video for the 3rd time in his office, compound eyes reflecting the screen. "Explain," he said slowly, "how one human cadet survives on a planet where we lost a fully equipped military team." An aide cleared their throat. "Earth is classified as a high-gravity death world with extreme variations. Humans evolved to endure conditions that would kill most spacefaring species." Krell pointed at the screen where Bruno splashed in a river behind Ryan. "And the Ursanthrax? The human is not wearing an environmental suit," the aide said, pulling up comparative analysis. "The suits mark wearers as foreign. Predators attack anything that smells wrong or acts like prey. This human has adapted to the environment instead of resisting it." Krell watched Ryan wade into acidic water that would dissolve Zakarian chitin and come out with little more than reddened skin. "This changes things," Krell murmured. And across the galaxy, people with authority began thinking the most dangerous kind of thought: what else have we been wrong about? Ryan reached the research station on his own schedule. The building emerged from the trees like a half-eaten skeleton modular Alliance design, now wrapped in purple vines and rust. Blast doors hung open at bad angles. Scorch marks licked the walls around the entrance. Deep gouges scored the plating like something had tried to peel the place open. Bruno stopped at the tree line. Ears flattened. A low growl vibrated out of him. Ryan glanced back. "That bad?" Bruno didn't move. Ryan checked his rifle charge and approached alone, flashlight beam cutting into the dark. Inside, the air was stale but breathable. Emergency lighting flickered in sections, limping along on backup solar. The corridors were a mess of overturned furniture and scattered equipment. The main lab looked like a storm had made a nest. Ryan found a cracked datapad on a desk, still holding a charge. He scrolled through the final entries. Day 47. Supply ship delayed again. Council says conditions prevent safe landing. Rationing food. Day 53. Jenkins reacting to atmospheric spores. Medical supplies low. Day 61. Water filtration failing. Local water too acidic for our species. Boiling doesn't change composition. 3 team members sick. Day 68. No contact in 6 days. I think they've abandoned us. Day 71. Trying to survive on local resources. Dr. Yennett believes some plant life may be edible if processed correctly. The log ended there. Ryan found more datapads, more fragments of slow disaster, suits that worked until they didn't, systems that failed one by one, people who fought the planet and lost. They had died of thirst next to rivers, starved while surrounded by food they couldn't digest, froze inside climate-controlled suits when power ran out because they'd never learned to tolerate the world as it was. Ryan sat in the control room reading the team's final conclusions. Uninhabitable for colonization. Recommend permanent quarantine. He looked up at the empty station. You were wrong, he said quietly. It's not uninhabitable. It's just uninhabitable for you. The data cores were exactly where the mission briefing promised, sealed in a vault. Ryan recovered them, downloaded everything to his portable drive, then backed it up twice, like superstition and good practice were the same thing. Then he explored with new purpose. The geothermal tap still fed power into the station's guts. The structure was sound beneath the scars. Hydroponics equipment sat beneath overgrowth like a forgotten treasure. This wasn't just a tomb. It could be a base. At sunset, Ryan stepped outside and found Bruno waiting at the edge of the clearing, still refusing to enter. Ryan sat beside him in the moss. I get it, he said, scratching behind Bruno's ear. Death smell. Bruno huffed, pressed his head against Ryan's shoulder. But it doesn't have to stay that way, Ryan whispered. We can make it something else. Bruno stared at the station, then at Ryan. Then, slowly, he took a cautious step forward. Ryan matched him. At the doorway, Ryan stopped. We go in together or not at all? Bruno sniffed the threshold like it was a line drawn by ghosts. Growled once, low and displeased. Then stepped inside. Ryan felt something in his chest loosen, not fear exactly, but the tension of being alone in a world that didn't care. Now he wasn't. That night, they slept in the control room with doors open to let fresh air move through. Bruno positioned himself between Ryan and the entrance, a living wall of fur and teeth. Ryan stared up at faintly glowing ceiling panels and thought about the team that had died here, waiting for rescue that never came. They had tried to force the planet to fit them. He had done the opposite. He'd fit himself to it. Earth had been harsh, unpredictable, dangerous for millions of years. It had taught humans flexibility or death. On Vort 7, that same lesson was a superpower. Ryan recorded a new transmission the next morning. Hey, Command. It's Ryan. I made it to the station. Data cores recovered, secure, backed up. He panned the camera across the control room, equipment humming. Bruno sleeping like a beast-sized guard dog. I found the previous team's logs, Ryan said, voice quieter. I'm requesting proper condolences be sent through channels. They died doing their jobs. He paused. But their conclusion about this planet was wrong. He looked straight into the lens. Vort 7 isn't uninhabitable. It's selective. He exhaled. I'm going to set up a permanent base here. Power works, shelter's solid, location's good. I'll send detailed reports. Bruno snored in the background, a rumble like distant. Thunder. Ryan smiled a little. Ryan out. The galaxy did what it always did with a new variable. It argued. Academics debated territorial classifications. Military strategists revised threat models. Corporations smelled profit. Real estate speculators bought survey rights. Diplomatic channels lit up with invitations Earth had never received before. Meanwhile, on Vort 7, Ryan cleaned broken labs, repaired hydroponics, and learned which local plants were edible if you cooked them twice and didn't breathe the steam. He built fish traps in streams. He taught Bruno to retrieve dropped fishing line. He explained sustainable harvest to millions of viewers who had never watched anyone survive without a climate-controlled suit. And when Command offered extraction heroes welcome, commendations, best postings, Ryan watched the message while eating breakfast in a station that finally felt warm. Bruno lay nearby gnawing a bone from yesterday's hunt. Ryan set up his camera. "Commander Hayes," he said, and the sincerity in his voice was real, "thank you. I mean that. But I'm staying on Vort 7. He gestured around him. The organized control room, the hydroponics bay sprouting earth vegetables, the window view of purple forest stretching to the horizon. This place feels like home. Bruno wandered into frame, flopped beside him, and demanded attention with the shameless confidence of something that knew it could kill anything in the room. Ryan scratched behind his ears and kept talking. "I'll accept the administrator position. I'll prep for eventual colonists. But no rush. We do this thoughtfully, or we don't do it at all." He looked out the window, expression turning serious. "Vort 7 isn't a prize. It's an ecosystem. We don't conquer it, we adapt to it. We respect what's already here." Bruno rolled onto his back, requesting belly rubs like he hadn't once tried to turn Ryan into a snack. Ryan obliged. "And yeah," he added, grin returning, "Bruno is becoming a celebrity. Children's Education Network asked to use clips of him. I said yes because look at him. He's absurdly photogenic." Right then Bruno knocked over a plant container, investigating a smell, sending soil everywhere. Ryan sighed, amused. "Okay, I've got to clean that up." He leaned closer to the camera. Ryan out. The first permanent colonists arrived a year later. 5 humans chosen for stubbornness, adaptability, and the kind of calm that didn't crack under strange skies. Ryan met them at the landing site with Bruno beside him, massive and watchful. The newcomers stared at the Ursanthrax like they were looking at a living natural disaster. Ryan smiled. "Everyone, this is Bruno." He crouched and spoke to the predator like he was introducing a friend at a party. "Bruno, these are our new neighbors. Be nice." Bruno sniffed each person carefully, then sat and yawned wide, showing every tooth. The colonists laughed nervously, but honestly. And that was how it started. Not with conquest or terraforming or a flag planted in hostile soil, but with a campfire mentality. Respect the environment. Read the rhythms. Adapt instead of demanding. Over the next 2 years, the colony grew gardens, infrastructure, families, lights and windows under 3 moons. Bruno appeared less often as he reclaimed deeper territory, but he returned regularly and eventually brought a mate who tolerated humans with cautious indifference. Commander Hayes retired and moved to Vort 7 himself, claiming he wanted to spend his last years somewhere interesting. Some evenings, he and Ryan sat on the station porch watching the moons rise, listening to the forest speak in its strange calls. "You changed the galaxy," Hayes said once, quietly. 40 human colonies on death worlds now following your model. Ryan shrugged, staring at the purple canopy. I just went camping and sent some videos. Hayes snorted softly. Exactly. You didn't try to conquer anything. You just proved adaptation beats domination. In the distance, Bruno's roar echoed. Higher-pitched calls answered Cubs. Ryan smiled. Later, out of habit more than necessity, he pulled out his camera and recorded a short message as warm settlement lights glowed behind him. Hey everyone, he said. Lieutenant Ryan Cole here with an update from Vort 7. Population's 32, now 33. If you count the baby due next month. He panned the camera across the tiny town, people moving between buildings, laughter carrying in the humid air. I guess the lesson's simple, Ryan said. There's no such thing as a death world. Just worlds that require different approaches. He looked out at the forest he'd learned to love. Respect the environment. Adapt to it. Build relationships with it. And anywhere can be home. At the edge of the clearing, Bruno's massive silhouette appeared briefly in moonlight, then melted back into the trees like a living shadow. Rand smiled at the lens. Stay curious out there. Ryan out. He turned the camera off and leaned back, content. Tomorrow he'd help expand the water system. Next week, survey a new settlement site. Eventually, explore the southern continent properly. But tonight, he just listened to the planet breathe, no longer an enemy, not even a challenge. Just home.